The rain hadn't stopped since morning. It fell in sheets, turning the cemetery paths into rivers of mud and the air into something heavy enough to drown in. I stood under a black umbrella that kept collapsing in the wind, watching the casket disappear into the earth. It felt too small, too final. People around me whispered condolences, their words dissolving in the downpour before they ever reached me. I just stared at the name engraved on the plaque, Evelyn Mills. My mother. My anchor. My reason for everything. Dad wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He'd sent flowers, white lilies that already looked tired and bruised by the rain. Typical Daniel Mills, always sending something beautiful to cover something ugly. When the pastor said, "Let us pray," I couldn't. My lips moved, but no words came out. Inside, I was screaming. Not because she was gone, but because none of it felt real. I'd seen the hospital papers. I'd signed the forms. But grief has a strange way of rearranging truth. Part of me kept waiting for her to walk up behind me, touch my shoulder, and whisper that this was all some mistake. Instead, all I heard was rain hammering the umbrella and a little girl's voice, my niece Ava, asking, "Aunt Michelle, why is Grandpa not crying?" I didn't have an answer. But something inside me whispered what my heart already knew. He wasn't mourning. He was relieved. My name is Michelle Mills, and the day everything changed started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. It was late, too late for good news, and the number on my screen said Harlem General Hospital. I remember staring at it, waiting for it to stop ringing, hoping it would all just go away. When I finally picked up, the nurse's voice was calm, practiced. "Ms. Mills, I'm so sorry to inform you. That's as far as I got before my knees gave out." The phone slid out of my hand and hit the floor, her words still coming through the speaker, distant and hollow. "You've got the wrong person," I said when I finally found my voice. "My mom's fine. She was painting this morning." I said it like repetition could rewrite reality. But they had her ID, her phone, her wallet. Everything matched. The words cardiac arrest echoed through my apartment like a curse. I spent that night walking from room to room, touching her things, the sweater she'd left on my couch, the half-finished mug of tea she'd forgotten during our last visit. Everything still smelled like her, lavender and turpentine. When dawn came, I went to identify her body. The sheet was cold. The face beneath it was hers, and yet it wasn't. Something in me refused to believe. Even as I signed the papers, I felt it, that quiet, stubborn pulse of doubt. My mother was gone, but the story wasn't over. After the funeral, the world went quiet in all the wrong ways. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful, it's suspicious. The apartment felt too still, the city too far away, and my father's absence hung over everything like a shadow I couldn't shake. 3 days after we buried her, he finally called. No condolences. No warmth. Just his usual clipped tone, like we were discussing quarterly losses instead of my mother's death. "Michelle," he said, "I know this is difficult, but you need to move forward. Dwelling won't help anyone." I almost laughed. Dwelling. As if grief were a bad investment. "You didn't even show up," I told him. "I don't handle funerals well," he replied. "Your mother knew that." There it was. That smooth, polished voice he used to close deals, to make lies sound reasonable. Only this time, I wasn't a client. I was his daughter, and I could hear what was missing. Guilt, sorrow, love. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop and scrolled through his social media, more out of spite than curiosity. Then I froze. A photo, posted the same day as the funeral, showed him on a boat in Miami, drink in hand, smiling like the world hadn't lost a thing. Something inside me cracked. Not from grief this time, but from realization. I whispered it aloud, barely trusting the words. He wasn't mourning. He was celebrating. And from that moment, my sadness began turning into suspicion. The storm rolled in the following night, fierce and endless. I was sitting by the window, laptop open, half drowning in unanswered emails when my phone buzzed on the table. I almost ignored it. Another condolence message, I thought, until I saw the name. Mom. For a second, my heart stopped. The room blurred around me. The screen lit up again with a single message. I'm not dead. Come to the cemetery now. I stared at it until the words stopped making sense. Then I whispered, No, no, that's impossible. I checked the number, it was hers. The same one I'd been calling for days, hoping to hear her voice on voicemail. Logic told me it was a cruel prank. But instinct, that wild, irrational part of me that had refused to believe she was gone, told me otherwise. I grabbed my coat and keys, my mind spinning faster than the storm outside. The streets were rivers, the sky a flashing bruise of light and thunder. Still I drove. Every red light felt like a test of faith. I didn't know if I was driving toward a miracle or madness. I whispered to myself, gripping the wheel tighter as rain lashed against the windshield. When I reached the gates of the cemetery, the world felt unreal. The wind howling, the air electric. My mother's grave stood ahead, untouched. And then I saw it, a flicker of movement behind the mausoleum. A shadow that shouldn't have been there. At first, I thought the storm was playing tricks on me. Lightning flashed, and for a moment I saw her, soaked, trembling, clutching the edge of a headstone like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Mom. My voice cracked through the rain. She turned. Her hair was plastered to her face, her eyes wide, terrified, alive. For a heartbeat, I couldn't move. Then I ran. The umbrella flew from my hand, the mud swallowing my shoes. None of it mattered. When I reached her, I grabbed her shoulders, afraid she'd vanish if I blinked. How is this possible? Her fingers were ice cold but real. She looked at me like someone seeing daylight for the first time. I didn't have a choice, Michelle, she whispered. Please, just listen. I pulled her into my arms. For the first time in weeks, my body remembered how to breathe. The cemetery lights flickered in the storm, casting us in flashes, mother and daughter, caught between life and the grave. You can't be here, I said through tears. Everyone thinks you're. I know, she interrupted. And that's exactly why I need you to keep quiet. For now. The wind howled around us, carrying away everything we didn't say. As she led me toward a car parked near the gates, I realized the truth I'd been chasing wasn't buried in the ground. It was standing right beside me, shaking, alive, and hiding from someone even more dangerous than death itself. We drove in silence for nearly an hour, the storm chasing us up the highway like it knew what we'd done. Mom's hands gripped the steering wheel, so tightly her knuckles looked ready to split. When we finally pulled into an abandoned rest stop, she turned to me with eyes that had seen too much. He's not the man you think he is, she said. Her voice was steady, but her body trembled. Daniel isn't grieving because he thought he'd already won. I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. Won what? Control. Money. Everything. She exhaled, the kind of sigh that carries years of secrets. He's a businessman, Michelle. To him, people are assets or obstacles. And I stopped being useful. She told me everything. The hidden accounts, the forged signatures, the threats whispered late at night. How she'd found evidence of his real estate scams buried in her own trust documents. And how, when she confronted him, he smiled and told her it would be easier for everyone if she just disappeared. So I did, she said quietly. With Martha's help. She works at the hospital. We made it look real. It was the only way. The words hit me harder than the rain ever could. My father hadn't lost his wife. He'd tried to erase her. As thunder rolled above us, I realized my grief had been a performance orchestrated by him. But this time, he wouldn't be the only one pulling the strings. The next morning, we checked into a short-term rental in Poughkeepsie, a small house that smelled like old rain and cedar. Mom slept for nearly a full day, and when she woke, her eyes were clearer, sharper. The fear was still there, but it had company now, resolve. We spread papers across the kitchen table. Contracts, deeds, tax forms, copies of emails that shouldn't have existed. Her handwriting filled the margins with notes and arrows. Every page told a story of deceit, Daniel's empire built on forged signatures and stolen trust funds. He thinks you're still grieving, she said. That's our advantage. Let him think he's winning. The plan was simple but dangerous. I'd play the obedient daughter, the one still too broken to fight. Meanwhile, Charlotte, Mom's old friend from college who'd become a lawyer, would prepare the real blow, a package of evidence timed to reach the authorities the same week I delivered the bait. "You're sure about this?" I asked. Mom nodded. "He's always underestimated women who stay quiet. Time he learns silence can be strategy." That night, I called Dad. My voice trembled just enough to sound believable. "I've been going through Mom's things," I said. "I think I found something you should see." He took the bait instantly, his tone smooth, curious. "Good girl. Bring it to the office." When the call ended, Mom smiled faintly. "That's how it starts," she whispered. "Justice never knocks. It walks right in." I didn't sleep that night. The house creaked with every gust of wind, and each sound felt like a warning. Still, I knew what had to be done. While Mom reviewed documents with Charlotte over the phone, I drove back to the city, back to the glass office tower with my father's name on it. Security was easy. I still had my old key card from helping him years ago with design layouts for one of his projects. Inside, the building was silent, the kind of silence that hums with power and secrets. I slipped into his office, my heart pounding like it wanted out. His desk was immaculate, too immaculate. Hidden compartments, locked drawers, a safe behind a framed photo of us smiling on my college graduation day. I almost laughed. He'd hidden his crimes behind family. How poetic. I downloaded files, scanned signatures, and photographed everything I could before the security system logged my access. By the time I got back to the car, my hands were shaking. The call came before I reached the bridge. His voice filled the car like smoke. "You were always clever," he said, his tone almost proud. "But you forgot who taught you how to lie." I gripped the steering wheel, forcing my breath steady. "This time, I'm not lying." He laughed, low, controlled, dangerous. "You have no idea what you've started, Michelle." "Oh, I do," I whispered before hanging up. "I'm ending it." For the first time, I wasn't afraid. We'd been hiding in the safe house for 3 days, long enough for tension to become air itself. The Hudson Valley was quiet, almost too peaceful, the kind of quiet that makes you listen for what's coming. Mom painted to stay calm, small strokes on canvas that looked like fragments of storms. I checked my phone every hour, waiting for Charlotte's message. "It's time." Instead, headlights cut across the gravel driveway. Mom froze. "He found us." Before I could answer, the front door slammed open. Daniel stepped in, rain dripping from his coat, his face carved with fury. "You think you can destroy me?" he shouted. "You're nothing without me, both of you." He advanced toward us, but I didn't back down. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. "You buried the wrong woman, Dad." That stopped him. Just long enough for the sirens to rise in the distance, faint at first, then swelling like thunder. His eyes darted to the window, realization breaking through his rage. Charlotte had sent the evidence. The police were already here. He lunged, grabbing my arm, but Mom stepped forward, calm and steady. "It's over, Daniel." The red and blue lights bled through the curtains. Officers stormed in, voices shouting commands. In seconds, it was done. Handcuffs, rights read, the end of his empire. As they led him away, he turned once, that same cold smirk on his face. But this time it didn't touch me. The storm had passed. Months later, the city felt different. Not louder or brighter, just lighter. Daniel's conviction made the headlines, but I barely glanced at the articles. The real victory was quieter, slower, and entirely ours. Mom and I moved to a small coastal town upstate. The kind of place where the fog rolls in over the water, and you can hear the waves breaking against the shore even through closed windows. She painted again, her brush moving with the ease of someone who had been silenced too long. I opened a small design studio, Evelyn and Michelle's studio, filling it with the colors and energy we'd both been holding inside. Some nights, I still hear the city in my dreams, the rain against the windows, the restless streets. But then I look at Mom, her laugh spilling into the studio like sunlight, and it fades. The mysterious text that brought me to her that night remains unexplained. I don't question it anymore. Some things aren't meant to be understood. They're meant to be believed in, like grace or luck, or the uncanny timing of a mother who refuses to be erased. One evening, after a long day at the studio, Mom tucked a brush behind her ear and said, "Good night, sweetheart." I smiled, walking past the window where the last light of the sun touched the water. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like freedom. And for the first time in years, that's exactly enough. Did you enjoy the story? If so, hit like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Thanks for watching Revenge with Keisha. See you next time.